I had the pleasure of catching up with a very good friend in Washington, D.C., Bob McEwen. He was a congressman who represented Ohio's southern 6th district for over a decade. He's a pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, smaller government advocate who knows why socialism can never succeed in America, or for that matter, anywhere else in the world. He's currently the head of the influential conservative group called Council for National Policy. Now, when we sat down recently, we talked about what socialism really means and how it might just disappoint a lot of people. Congressman, I want to start at this point of socialism, the infatuation that so many young people seem to have with it. What is it they don't get?
Let's talk about America. There are skyscrapers all over the world. Why? Because an American invented the elevator. An American invented the air conditioner, the airplane, the light bulb, the telegraph, the telephone. More books, plays, symphonies, more copyrights, more inventions than the other 96% of the rest of the world combined. The question would be why? And here it is. If I want to get money out of that person parked at that street corner down there, I have to lay awake nights figuring out ways to do something good for them such that they'll voluntarily, freely, reach in their pocket and say, oh, you're going to wash my car and sweep the carpeting and dash. Oh, I'd much rather have that than have this $10 bill. You're going to make this app that I'll never get lost again in GPS. I'd much rather have that than have this $200. So under free enterprise, the way you get money is that you bless another person. They make an exchange, which at the end of the exchange, they are both better off. They've created wealth. And that's the only way wealth is created. Now, there's another way I can get from them. That is, I just walk up with a gun. I stick my gun in the window and I say, I want 50% of everything in your purse. Now, let's don't call that person a criminal. Let's call him a congressman. Let's call him a city councilman. And the councilman says, if you have the audacity to live in Detroit, the richest city in the history of mankind, I'm going to take half of everything that you've got. And you're not going to have any choice in the matter. And so the people leave. The population of Detroit, smaller than it was in 1900. And 48,000 single-family homes are empty. So socialism always creates poverty.
I've heard you do the most remarkable speech probably I've ever heard on understanding the basics of the economy, called Easy as Pie. And when you tell it, I'm always thinking, why don't we teach this in our colleges, universities, and other schools? Give us a synopsis.
We only vote on two things. I don't care if you're in Belgium or Baghdad or Boston. You only vote on two things. One is the integrity, the honesty. In America, we had a biblical Bible system, protect life. No other nation did that. Life, then liberty. Notice the sequence. Liberty's precious little value when you're dead. So you have to have life first, then liberty. So that integrity, and then secondly, integrity plus economics. Those are the only two things that you vote on in Venezuela, in China, and wherever. In the economics part, there's either I create wealth and get rewarded for blessing people, or someone comes along and steals it from me. And that's called socialism. They use the group to say, get that person. We're gonna those rich people in California, we're gonna attack them. And so the state goes in. It happens every place all over the world. So those are the only two things that you vote on. Politics, P, equals integrity, I, plus economics. Politics, easy as pie. And I have it on my website.
This cannot be accomplished apart from a spiritual, God-centered foundation.
So you can have the lowest taxes in the world in Congo. But if everybody's stealing and you have to have police to surround your factory, and you have to have a guard on the train when you're going to the border, and you have to bribe the people at the port. If the lack of integrity, then economics doesn't matter. You have to have both. And libertarians sometimes are trying to think that they can have the economic freedom without the integrity part.
Bywords of people on the left, and especially most of the Democrats running for president, is this term, fair share. Everybody ought to pay a fair share. And then they interpret that to mean that if you have accumulated some level of wealth, you're not paying a fair share, even if you're paying the highest tax rates. What's wrong with that idea of a fair share?
Here's the problem. Socialism doesn't know how people get rich. And so the left can take advantage of that. And so they go around and say things, isn't it terrible? Governor, it's just really terrible the way that wealth is distributed in this country. And I tell people, this is like you get in a car in Columbus and Interstate 70, and you got Indiana, you go through Iowa, and on both sides, all you see is corn, corn, corn. Then you go to Nebraska, and all you see is wheat, wheat, wheat. And then you get to Denver, and you give a speech. Isn't it terrible the way corn is distributed in this country? Isn't it terrible the way wheat is? No, wheat is not distributed, wheat is grown. Corn is not distributed, wealth is not distributed, it's created. And if you don't create the wealth, then you, leftists, don't have anything to distribute. And that's why people are fleeing New York and elsewhere. New York and Florida now, this last 6 months, are exactly the same population. One arguing as to who's third or fourth. They're exactly the same population. The budget in Albany, New York is twice what it is in Tallahassee, Florida. So you can make any rich place poor, or you can make any poor place rich, if you understand that principle.
Venezuela is a great example.
Richest
What are the
nation
richest
south.
places with the greatest natural resources, greatest oil reserves in the world? And then now they're in poverty, and many of their people are starving to death, and 4 million have already exited the country as refugees looking just to eat.
Socialism creates poverty. And the Democratic Congress people from Minnesota are talking about that it's America's fault that they're poor. And why in the world we allow members of Congress to say those things? Not one person, not one Democrat in Congress criticized those statements blaming us for what's happening in Venezuela.
As you look at the landscape ahead, honest answer, you optimistic or pessimistic about the future of America?
Governor, I've never been more optimistic in my life. Socialism has run its course. They see what they're doing in Seattle. They see what they're doing in California. They see what they've done to Chicago. And I think that America is going to have a revitalization for which I am so excited.
I like that. A great place to conclude. Thank you, Congressman.
Appreciate you.
Great to visit with you.
You're the best, Governor.
To find out more about Bob McEwen, his advocacy for this great nation, capitalism, and so much more, visit bobmcewen.com. You can also follow him on social media @Bob McEwen.